Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. When my parents first moved in back in 2019, my older sister Emma was about 2 and I was just a tiny baby. There was a homeowner association then. They collected monthly fees from everyone in the neighborhood, supposedly in exchange for their services. At first, my parents just went along with it. My dad, Jake, would say, "Well, they handle the snow removal and trash collection, so that's something, right?" My mom, Sarah, would nod, but she wasn't entirely convinced. "I don't know," she'd say. "Something feels off about the whole thing." And she was right. The city actually controlled the snowplows and garbage trucks, not the homeowner association. But they maintained this facade of usefulness. Then came the summer of 2021 when they announced their big neighborhood improvement project. "We've contracted a professional landscaping company to plant new trees throughout the community," announced Barbara Brooks, the homeowner association president, at a meeting. The fact that the company belonged to her son Kevin was, according to her, purely coincidental. That's when everything started to unravel. My grandmother Diana was visiting when the tree planting crew showed up. Now, Diana isn't just any gardener, she's a certified master gardener who takes immense pride in her work. "Sarah, come look at this," Diana called from the window. "These men aren't even planting the trees, they're just dropping them." My mom joined her at the window, watching as the workers literally dropped bagged saplings onto the grass. No holes dug, no proper placement. Just sad little trees in plastic bags scattered across lawns. "They'll all be dead by morning if they're not planted properly," Diana said, shaking her head. That was the moment my mom snapped. "I'm paying these people how much every month?" she muttered, grabbing her keys. She drove straight to Barbara Brooks's house. "Mrs. Brooks," my mom said firmly, "I need to discuss these trees we're all paying for." Barbara, thrilled that someone was showing interest in homeowner association matters, made what would turn out to be a crucial mistake. "Actually, Sarah, would you be interested in joining the homeowner association board?" "I'd love to," my mom replied, trying to hide her smile. The trees were eventually planted, but just as my grandmother predicted, most didn't survive. At her first homeowner association meeting, my mom found herself in a room with only 5 other people. "Is this everyone?" she asked, looking around the nearly empty community center. "We're a small but dedicated group," Barbara responded proudly. My mom spent that entire summer of 2021 investigating the homeowner association. She'd push me in my stroller while carrying stacks of documents, meeting with neighbors, and uncovering years of questionable practices. "Did you know the homeowner association doesn't actually do anything the city isn't already doing?" she'd tell neighbors during her door-to-door campaign. "In serio? Are you serious?" Mrs. Rodriguez from down the street asked when my mom shared her findings. "We've been paying them for nothing?" The real bombshell came when my mom discovered that this homeowner association wasn't even supposed to be operating in our neighborhood. Their jurisdiction was actually in a completely different area. She enlisted help from Maria Garcia, another homeowner association board member who became her ally. "This is absolutely insane," Maria would say as they sorted through financial records. "They've been running this scam for years." My mom hired attorney David Chen and accountant Robert Peters, spending her own money to build a case. By fall 2021, she was ready. Standing in the courthouse, my mom presented irrefutable evidence of the homeowner association's fraudulent activities. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. The homeowner association was immediately dissolved. "This is a clear case of systematic fraud," Judge Wilson declared. "This homeowner association has no legal right to operate in this neighborhood. It's now 2024 and no one has dared to start another homeowner association here. As my mom likes to say, sometimes all it takes is one person asking the right questions." The next one is an entitled people's story. Let me start by saying that I never wanted to be part of a homeowner association. My wife Sarah and I bought our dream property, 5 acres of beautiful wooded land backing up to a lake, specifically because it wasn't in any homeowner association. The property is located just outside city limits in a rural area, but still only 20 minutes from downtown where we both work. We purchased the land in 2018 and spent a year building our forever home, a modest 2,500 square foot ranch-style house positioned to take advantage of the lake views. We left most of the property naturally wooded, just clearing enough space for the house, driveway, and a small yard. The rest we kept wild, with hiking trails winding through the trees down to the lake. The trouble started in early 2022 when a developer bought the adjacent 50-acre plot and started building Lake Vista Estates, a fancy gated community of McMansions packed together on tiny lots. I wasn't thrilled about having neighbors so close, but there wasn't much I could do about it. The developer, Luxury Living LLC, established a homeowner association for the new community before selling any lots. That's when I met Karen Brooks, the homeowner association president. She showed up at my door one Saturday morning in her tennis whites, clipboard in hand. "Hi there. I'm Karen Brooks, president of the Lake Vista Estates Homeowners Association. I noticed your property doesn't meet our community standards. We'll need you to submit improvement plans within 30 days. I blinked at her. "Excuse me? Your landscaping or lack thereof," she said with a tight smile. "The natural woodland look simply won't do. We maintain strict standards to protect property values." "Ma'am, I'm not part of your homeowner association. This property was here long before Lake Vista Estates existed." Karen's smile didn't waver. "Oh, but you are! Your property falls within our jurisdiction according to the new community maps. Here, let me show you." She pulled out a clearly altered map showing my entire 5 acres as part of their development. I immediately recognized it was fake. The property lines were completely wrong. "This map is incorrect," I said firmly. "I have my original survey and deed. This land is not part of your development or homeowner association." "Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree," Karen chirped. "You have 30 days to submit improvement plans or face fines. Have a lovely day." She turned and walked away before I could respond. I immediately called my real estate attorney, James Martinez, who had handled our closing. He confirmed what I already knew. My property was completely separate from Lake Vista Estates, and their homeowner association had zero authority over us. James sent a certified letter to the Homeowner Association Board stating this in no uncertain terms, including copies of our deed and property survey. We thought that would be the end of it. We were wrong. A few weeks later, I came home from work to find construction crews on my property, bulldozing trees and clearing land along the property line shared with Lake Vista Estates. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, jumping out of my car. The crew foreman approached me. "Homeowner Association contracted us to build Lakeview patios for the new homes. Got all the permits right here." He showed me a stack of permits that had clearly been issued for lots within Lake Vista Estates, not my property. The homeowner association was trying to steal my land to build patios for their residents. I immediately called the police to report the trespassing and property damage. While waiting for them to arrive, I started filming everything on my phone and called James. 2 officers showed up about 20 minutes later. Karen arrived at the same time in her Mercedes SUV. "Officers, this man is interfering with approved homeowner association improvements," she announced before they could even get out of their car. "We have all necessary permits." "This is my private property," I countered. "I have proof right here." I pulled up the property survey on my phone. The officers reviewed both sides' documentation. "Ma'am, these permits are for lots 1535 in Lake Vista Estates. This property is not part of that development. Your crews are trespassing and causing property damage." Karen's face turned red. "That's ridiculous. This is all homeowner association property now. We voted to annex this land at our last board meeting." "That's not how property rights work," one officer explained patiently. "You can't just vote to take someone's private property. Your crews need to leave immediately." "We'll see about that," Karen spat, storming back to her car. The officers made the construction crews pack up and leave. By then, they had already cleared about half an acre of trees and graded the land for patios. I was livid. The next day, James filed for an emergency injunction to prevent any further construction. We also filed a civil suit against the Homeowner Association and Luxury Living LLC for trespassing, property damage, and attempting to illegally seize my land. But Karen wasn't done yet. While waiting for our court date, she launched a harassment campaign. She had homeowner association security patrol cars park at the edge of my property 24/7 with their lights flashing. She sent daily violation notices threatening thousands in fines. She even tried to block my driveway access with construction equipment. The final straw came when she had crews return at 5 a.m. on a Saturday, this time with concrete trucks. By the time I woke up and called the police, they had already poured foundations for 20 patios, destroying another acre of my woodland. James immediately filed for contempt of court since they had violated the injunction. The judge was not happy. At the emergency hearing the following Monday, Karen showed up with an expensive lawyer from a big downtown firm. She sat there smugly as her attorney tried to argue that the homeowner association had assumed domain over my property through some convoluted legal theory. Judge Martinez, no relation to my lawyer, wasn't having any of it. "Mrs. Brooks, are you familiar with the concept of adverse possession?" the judge asked. "Of course," Karen replied confidently. "That's exactly what we're doing, taking possession of unused land to improve the community." "That's not how adverse possession works," Judge Martinez said, removing his glasses. "First, the statutory period in this state is 20 years. Second, you can't claim adverse possession when you know the land belongs to someone else. What you're doing is criminal trespassing and vandalism." Karen's smile finally faltered. "But our community needs lake access. It's not fair that he gets to homeowner association RD all this woodland when our residents paid premium prices for Lakeview properties. Your failure to secure adequate lake access for your development is not Mr. Peterson's problem," the judge responded. "The property rights here are crystal clear. I'm granting the permanent injunction and ordering the homeowner association to remove all structures and restore the damaged land to its original condition within 30 days. "But that will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars," Karen protested. "Perhaps you should have considered that before illegally building on someone else's property," the judge replied dryly. "I'm also ordering the homeowner association to pay all of Mr. Peterson's legal fees and $50,000 in punitive damages. If any homeowner association representative sets foot on his property again without written permission, there will be criminal charges. Do I make myself clear?" Karen's face was purple with rage, but she nodded stiffly. Outside the courthouse, her lawyer pulled her aside, and I overheard him saying, "You're lucky he's not pressing criminal charges. Don't make this worse." But Karen couldn't help herself. That evening, she called an emergency homeowner association meeting and tried to pass a special assessment of $10,000 per household to cover the court costs and restoration work. "This is all Peterson's fault," she ranted to the assembled homeowners. "He's trying to destroy our property values by keeping that eyesore of a forest. We need to fight this." That's when one of her own residents, a retired lawyer named Bill Henderson, stood up. "Karen, I've reviewed the court documents. You deliberately falsified property maps and violated multiple court orders. You've exposed this homeowner association to massive liability. If you don't resign from the board immediately, I'll file a derivative lawsuit on behalf of all homeowners against you personally for breach of fiduciary duty." The room erupted in angry shouts, not at me, but at Karen. Turns out the residents had no idea she was trying to steal my land. They'd been told the patios were being built on homeowner association common areas. "You said we owned that land," one woman yelled. "I paid an extra $50,000 for a guaranteed Lakeview lot." "She told me there would be a community beach and boat dock," another resident added. It quickly became apparent that Karen and the developer had been working together to sell lots using fraudulent promises about lake access. They never had the rights to my property. They just assumed they could bully or force me into selling. The homeowner association board voted to remove Karen that night. The new board president, Bill Henderson, called me the next day. "Mr. Peterson, on behalf of Lake Vista Estates, I want to apologize for this situation. We've hired a new contractor to remove the patios and restore your land. We'll also be installing permanent boundary markers and a fence at our expense." "I appreciate that," I replied. "What about Karen?" "She's being investigated for fraud," Bill said. "Several homeowners are suing her and the developer for misrepresentation. The DA is also looking into criminal charges for the falsified permits." Over the next month, I watched with satisfaction as crews carefully removed all the concrete and restored the graded areas. They brought in mature trees to replace the ones that had been cut down and replanted native vegetation. The homeowner association paid for everything, including installing an expensive security system on my property. Karen and her husband quietly sold their Lake Vista estate home and moved away. Last I heard, she's facing multiple fraud charges and civil lawsuits. The developer, Luxury Living LLC, filed for bankruptcy after dozens of homeowners sued them. The new homeowner association board turned out to be much more reasonable. They negotiated an easement agreement where they paid me to build a small community dock at one corner of my property. In exchange, I got a hefty annual fee, and they covered all maintenance and liability insurance. Everyone won, except Karen. My wife Sarah and I still live happily in our woodland home. The trees have grown back nicely, and we enjoy walking our trails down to the lake. Sometimes we wave to our Lake Vista neighbors fishing off the community dock. They're actually pretty nice people when they're not being led by a power-mad homeowner association president. The whole experience taught me several valuable lessons. Always keep your property surveys and legal documents easily accessible. Get a good real estate attorney on speed dial. Document everything with photos and videos. Stand your ground when you know you're right. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the law take its course. I also learned that not all homeowner association residents are entitled Karens. Many are just regular people who want to live in a nice neighborhood. The problem comes when power-hungry individuals take over and try to extend their authority where it doesn't belong. As for Karen, word is she tried to join another homeowner association board in her new neighborhood. They Googled her name and unanimously rejected her application. Karma really does come back around. The funniest part? After all that drama and expense trying to steal my land for lake views, most of the Lake Vista homes still can't see the lake, because the trees on my property have grown back even thicker than before. But hey, at least they have their community dock. My property value has actually increased significantly since this all happened. Turns out having 5 acres of pristine woodland next to a luxury development is quite desirable. I've had several real estate agents approach me with offers, but Sarah and I aren't interested in selling. This is our forever home, and after defending it from Karen's attempted hostile takeover, we're more attached to it than ever. The whole episode has become something of a local legend. New Lake Vista residents are given a copy of the court decision during orientation as a reminder to respect property boundaries. And whenever anyone in town deals with an unreasonable homeowner association, they say, "Don't pull a Karen." Everyone knows exactly what that means. Life is peaceful now. The only sounds we hear are birds singing in the trees and waves lapping at the shoreline. Sometimes at sunset, I sit on my back porch, the one I built myself with proper permits, and raise a glass to Karen, wherever she is. Thanks to her, I not only kept my land, but ended up with better neighbors and a nice stream of easement income. I guess the moral of the story is, don't mess with other people's property rights, and definitely don't assume you can bully your way into ownership. The law exists for a reason, and sometimes justice prevails in the most satisfying ways possible. The next one is a petty revenge story. So, we have our fair share of homeless people in my town, the usual, ones at the end of exit ramps with signs, or at the lights of highways. Usually I don't give anything because realistically usually don't have anything to give. But yesterday, I'd had a decent day and actually found myself with a couple of bucks on hand. I see one particular man at a freeway light often, and I know some of his story. He does use any money collected to purchase food, drink, not alcohol that I've seen, not that it's any of my business anyway, and will accept items graciously, not just cash. So I pull up to the light, wave him over, and hand him the $4 I had. He thanks me and happens to walk across the intersection to the same gas station I was also heading to in the first place. I go in to get gas, he grabs some of the hot food and a cheap fountain drink. All good, right? Nope. In comes Karen, the typical look and everything. Big sunglasses, the haircut, yoga pants, all of it. She immediately storms over to the register and demands a manager. I'm only mildly paying attention, 'cause I just need gas. Manager comes forward and this woman points that ugly-ass orange-red long nail at me. "I need police here. That woman gave that drug addict money outside your establishment." And a slew of other really random and ever-growing nonsense. At this point, the 3 other customers, me, the man I helped, and now a very interested customer, are staring at her. Manager looks so confused. So I chimed in. I said regardless that it isn't her business, I gave the guy a few bucks across the street, and he's buying food. Manager is like, okay. Karen isn't happy. She is screaming that obviously the station is a front for drugs and all sorts of crazy crap. At this point, I've lost interest. Man buys his food, walks out. I get to register, ask for gas. Is Karen done? Haha, No. She demands that if I'm going to pay for his drugs, then I need to buy her gas. She tells the cashier and manager to put I think like 40 on whatever pump she was at on my dime and storms out. We all just blink. I chuckled a bit and told them how much gas I needed. I was going to just ignore it, but I'm petty. I said put $1 on her pump. Her screaming when the pump stopped at $1 was beautiful. I got my gas and left while she was storming back into the station. Best dollar I've ever wasted. And glad she didn't actually harass the poor guy just trying to eat. The next one is a malicious compliance story. About 10 years ago, I have applied to work at a retail store selling different tech. It is a rather large chain in the UK and can get pretty busy, especially after 5 p.m. or during holidays/sales. When I applied for a job, I wanted to go to computing department as I was very passionate about different builds and had some experience in building my own PC. Instead, I was temporarily placed on white goods, fridges, washing machines, etc. for training, even after I have admitted I know absolutely nothing about them. But no, apparently this knowledge should have been inherited through my genes since I am a girl, so I must know about them and be very good. So I bit my tongue and waited as I needed money and was fresh out of uni. About a few months in, I have realized I am not going to be transferred to the computing department, no matter how much I wanted to. My sales were good, but the managers wouldn't budge as they were scared I might advise something wrong. It was the start of a school term and the store was getting petty busy. A couple came in wanting to buy a PC for their teenage kid to game on. I wanted to help them as a fellow gamer myself, but got rudely pulled back by my manager and was told unless we are assigned to a specific department, we are not allowed to help customers or advise them. So he fetched another colleague who carried on assisting the parents. As it was quiet in my department, I was doing some tidying up around the store and heard the colleague trying to sell the parents one of the Apple PCs, saying they will be great for gaming and all professionals use them. At the time, we had a bigger commission from Apple brand. Let me tell you, they are not the best machines for gaming, and if you are into heavier games, they are likely not going to run that well or be incompatible with the OS. I don't know what else the colleague said, but the parents believed him and got an iMac for the kid. The manager was very proud of the colleague and told me to use him as an example of a good sale for the store. I have told him I could have topped it and the customer will come back with a return, but was told again not to go to computing department. Cue malicious compliance. A few days later, it was a busy day in the store, especially PCs due to back-to-school sale. A few people were off sick due to being overworked, so the computing department had like 2 people on the floor, including the work colleague who sold the iMac. The parents came through the door with the PC they got, which usually means something broke down or they want to return it. They saw the guy who sold them the PC and started heading his way. He saw them too and decided it is time to go on lunch, leaving one colleague on the floor in the department. The parents are visibly getting angry and try to go to the till, but after being in the queue are told to catch another colleague from the tech department as we can't process refunds at the till for large items. The parents approach me as I don't have much to do and ask for help. I would be happy to do so, but remembering what the manager said, I had to tell them I can't, as I'm not allowed to do anything with the PC department as it is a store policy. The parents approach more colleagues and keep hearing the same excuse. Obviously, they are getting more and more angry, so are other customers who want to buy something but can't, since only people in computing department are allowed to sell stuff for computers. They try to grab the only person on the floor, but he is already busy with other customers and can't assist them while the other colleague responsible for the sale signed out for the day and the other is late. In about 20 minutes, there's a massive queue by the tills of angry customers demanding to speak to the manager. The poor person at the till has no choice but to fetch the store manager and floor managers due to the amount of angry customers. They are trying to shift the blame on us, other store colleagues, but I mention about what the other manager said about not touching anything in tech department or help customers, as we are not authorized, and since it is a company policy and we haven't received the training, we have to comply. Of course, it makes customers even more angry and feel like their time is wasted, resulting in a commotion by the tills and further delays for other customers. I am unsure how the entire situation ended, as I was grabbed by an older lady to help her, but that day we had a lot of complaints on different websites about the policy and store staff refusing to help as it is not their department. And we had a few brainstorming sessions after how to reduce complaints with none of the ideas taken on board. You would hope they would learn something and change the policy, but no. They gave extra training to the people already in computing department and allowed other colleagues to sell smaller items like mice, keyboards, consoles, games, printers, but not the laptops or PC or VR, resulting in more complaints. Last time I have been there to buy my mom a new laptop, had a voucher. The situation seemed to have stayed the same, as we ended up waiting around 45 minutes for someone to push the sale through. At least I got a chance to complain to the store manager as well, telling him everything I think about that store policy. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.